whether or not you love the original Wingspan. The question still remains, can you add a game that is similar of nature, but with just a thematic twist? Can you own both in your collection? Wyrmspan sets you in the world of dragons, dark, mysterious caves with the smell of charcoal meat. As you enter this dark, mysterious cave, you can see at the end some treasure and a big, large, dark shadow lurking over the top. That's right, you have set foot in the amethyst abyss, and you are now face to face with a dragon. Let's touch on the major things that are different in Wyrmspan. Firstly, you're going to notice caves. Caves are a big one. We need to place our caves before we can place out our dragons on top of them. Next up, we're going to have silver tokens. Silver tokens are going to be the amount of turns we get per round, and they're going to replace the cubes in Wingspan. Next up, we have an explorer out here. So let's quickly go over what are our actions. Firstly, excavate. We've got caves. That's how we excavate. Entice. We have dragons. That's how we get dragons into our board. And explore. This is where this meeple finally comes into play. This is going to be us bouncing over the different actions there, just like we did in Wingspan, except we're going to be going from left to right instead of Wingspan bouncing right to left. Pretty much that's about it. Dragon Guild board, that's going to be new. We're going to be going around here collecting a whole bunch of resources. When we get to the brown parts, we're going to get to go on this Plains Guild, put out one of our cubes and get a pretty good bonus there. What else have we got here? Automa is going to be not much different. Look, objectives 4 rounds, very similar. We get a Wyrmspan Dragon fact book, which is kind of cool. And that's the main differences. So let's get in. What do I actually think of this game? Now, to fully understand this game, we're going to need to break it out. I'm going to break it out into design, theme, art, vibes, and solo. So my 5 pillars right there. Plus also stay tuned till right to the end. I'm going to do a rapid fire 4 pros, 4 cons of Wyrmspan. But firstly, let's get into design. So technically, Wyrmspan's a better game. So think of it as Wingspan 2.0, and I know that's almost insulting to the original game because at its heart, that's an absolute modern classic now. But Wyrmspan adds so many more factors, making it technically a better game. Things like hatchlings, a nice little addition there. The caves that drop before the dragons, amazing. We have different guild boards here. We have 2 to 3 player on one side, 4 to 5 on the other side. Again, some variety every single time we play. And lastly, these little silver tokens. What is really good about these is as the game ramps up towards the end, we're going to be getting additional actions, additional silver tokens, which gives us additional actions. Now this goes to the opposite of Wingspan, where as the game gets longer and longer, you get less and less turns. So technically a better game, but does a technically better game make it a better game? Now, nature or fantasy? It's always a personal preference, and for me, it's always going to be nature. I'm absolutely a fan of birds. I love bird photography. I love getting geeky and learning about birds, and that's why Wingspan is so appealing to me. The vibrant colors, seeing all the different types of birds around the world, that's a theme I truly enjoy. Fantasy, I've never really got into. I like animal worlds like Everdell and things like that, but just the thought of dragons and caves, it doesn't do much for me. But that's theme. Let's talk about thematic elements in this game, and Wyrmspan actually has more thematic elements than Wingspan. Now in Wingspan, I'm often forgetting that I'm out there just observing birds in different habitats. I just get lost and it doesn't ever really dawn on me that's what I'm doing. Whereas in Wyrmspan, you realize you're exploring caves. You've got caves out there, you've got dragons, you've got hatchlings, you've got all of these thematic elements. You've got gold treasure in there, they've got meat. It feels more thematic. So, Wyrmspan wins in thematic elements. It also wins in design, but will it win in art? And simple answer is not a chance at all. Look, Wingspan has the added bonus of having real life birds to be able to draw on. Those birds naturally have beautiful colors. We're attracted to them. Your brain, once it knows something, it's going to be more attracted to that. So when I got the Oceania expansion, all those birds just seemed so incredible. I wanted to keep seeing every single one of them because I know them in real life. I have them on my backyard all the time, popping in, getting a little seed. I am naturally attracted to that art. When it comes to dragons, there's no actual context. Dragons don't exist. Dragons, we have nothing to draw on. So when it comes to the art, every dragon just seems to blend in because I have no context of what that dragon is and what its history is. Now, I reckon Stonemaier realized that, and that's why they added in this dragon facts to try and give some sort of life, some sort of history to all of these dragons. And unfortunately, look, while this is a great thing, unfortunately these dragons, they just blend into each other. So as you go through them, there's just not enough differences for me to really get attached to any of these dragons. And again, looking at the player board, everything's muted sort of tones. The caves are muted, the playing board, the guild board, even the artwork on the dragons is quite a dull, muted tone artwork. Look, it certainly blends all together, but it's just not attractive to my eye. Now, the next category is very unique to my own reviews, and that is vibes. How do I analyze vibes? Are there metrics? Are there stats? No, it's always a personal opinion, and probably the best way I can think about vibes is, would I build a shrine to Wyrmspan? No. Would I build a shrine to Wingspan? Certainly did. There's only 2 games I've done that to, and that's Everdell and Wingspan, because those 2 games really sing to me. So vibes for this game. Look, it's a very polished game. Would I play this game? Of course I would, I love it. Would I introduce it to friends? Of course I would. Would I play this game solo? Of course I would. There's so many positive vibes, but you are following up to a modern classic. Now, Wingspan is a modern classic. This game was released in 2019, and it set a tone, it set a chord that a lot of people related to. It was nature, it was birds, we can relate to that. But it was also the fact it was a woman designer, Elizabeth Hargrave. We have women artists in there. It was something that actually was quite empowering for women in the board game movement. And for a lot of people, it introduced board games to them that weren't so geeky, and a bigger and larger audience now absolutely love Wingspan and are into board games because of that one single game. So look, while Wyrmspan is great, the vibes are never as strong. Now, if I had 10 plays of either Wingspan or Wyrmspan, I'd probably pick Wingspan maybe 7 or 8 times. I'd probably pick Wyrmspan to play 2 to 3 times. So maybe that gives you a bit of an idea where I'm leaning there. So, vibes. Yeah. Now let's have a little chat about solo. Now, I am playing a lot more solo games lately, and it is something that is so high up on my list of priorities when I'm looking at a game. So for a game to have such a solid solo experience, Wyrmspan rates really highly for me in that regard. And what it is the Stonemaier Automa system, which is from designer David J. Studley, and look, amazing name, but also amazing solo experience. So very low overhead, very reminiscent of playing against a player, and that is the perfect AI system. So for solo, for Wingspan or Wyrmspan, it doesn't matter. Both of them amazing experiences, and both of them going to be rating very highly in my top ever solo games. So that's my 5 pillars. Let's quickly get into the quickfire, 4 pros and 4 cons. Firstly, the best 4 things about Wyrmspan, and let's start off the little silver coins. What matters here is that you're earning extra turns at the end of the game. That's exciting, that's incredible, and that's a great change. Guild boards, and especially these little bonuses, these bonuses are great, and sometimes there's too many awesome choices. It's really hard to choose. Even just a straight 6 points there. Really great addition. Next up, hatchlings. Not because they're babies and they're cute, but but because of these things down the bottom. And what they are is they're cached goods. You get to cache some goods, and then when you get your third one, you get a bonus. It's a really nice addition. I love the hatchlings. And lastly, we just chatted about Solo, the automa. An amazing automa there. Really rate it, love it. They're my 4 pros. Let's see, what are the cons? And the cons, first big con is, where is my storage container in Wyrmspan? Massive miss here. Obviously I'm using my Europe leftover Wingspan Europe one, and where else am I gonna be storing all these cards? Just in a plastic bag? That is just nuts, that is insane. Come on Stonemaier, that would have been the easiest win of all. Next up, I wanna talk about the muted tones. Unfortunately, all the dragons, I know there's some differences in them, but they just blend in, there's no vibrancy, and I really miss that from the original Wingspan. What about another missed opportunity here? These are little gold, I guess, treasure tokens. Now, how good would it have been a thematic element of you explore the caves, and at the end of the caves, you get the gold, and that's the only way you get the resources, by actually exploring the caves. I reckon that would have made so much thematic sense. It would be an awesome way to get that particular resource. And finally, I'm just gonna say, dragons versus birds. Bird nerd forever. Look, birds are always gonna be the best. So they're my 4 cons. And finally, which is the overall better game? Well, of course, I have too many biases to not pick Wingspan. I think you already knew that going along in this video. But here's the thing, this is unfair to Wyrmspan. Wyrmspan is technically a better game. It's a great game. Can you own both? Of course you can own both. Do you need both? Probably not. Are you more of a fantasy person? Are you more of a nature person? Now, to really understand how Wyrmspan plays, don't forget to check out my solo playthrough of Wyrmspan. You'll get to see the automa in action and get to really understand how good Wyrmspan really is.